All right, so we'll start off with what we left off yesterday. So yesterday we saw that we created the login and the register.
I think we lost this connection, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never mind, I just had some issues with my internet. Just give me 1 or 2 minutes. I'll join right back. Yeah, hopefully I'm audible now.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, so as I was saying yesterday, we had finished with the register and login pages, how they look. So let's now try to add some functionality to it. So I'll quickly run the server again. And so if we open, so as you can see, the home page is basically an empty page, and the login and the register forms, they are the forms. So let's try to first develop the register page so that we can add an user, and then we'll try to log in with that user. So usually in a MVC architecture, we have a separation of concern. So there are three main components in MVC, right? So the model, the view, and the controller. So the model, so this I guess you would have in the MAD1 theory. So the model basically interacts only with the database. And we have already created this in our code, right? So this is basically the models.py file which we have. So this inside we have the SQL Alchemy ORM. So SQL Alchemy is the object relational mapper, which basically interacts with the database. So we don't have to write SQL queries ourselves, but we can use the model to do this conversation with the database. So now we have also created the views, right? So views are basically nothing but the HTML pages or the Jinja templates. So these will be something which the user can see. So if the user is there in the front end, they interact directly with the views. So, and the views have no access to the model. So the views cannot make any changes. So then the role of the controller is basically the middleman. So the controller interacts with the model and the controller interacts with the view. And if the user does something and tells the wants to make some changes to the database, they convey that to the controller, who in turn decides if they want to make that change or not. So the controller will be our routes.py, where we declare all the routes. So what happens when someone goes to some route? All right, so let's open the routes.py. And as you can see, for now, we just have the simple get request routes, right? So if someone goes to the login page or if they go to the register page, so they're sending a get request. So that get request is taken by this app.route login and app.route register, and this method is called, where they just rendered a Jinja template. So now let's create like a handler for the post as well. So right now, as you can see, if we go to the register form, the form action is empty, which is basically the current location, and the class is form. So let's add a method equals post as well. So we're telling that when the form is submitted for the register as well as the login, we want the browser to send a post request instead of a get request. So if I reload this page now, so the form is now a get post form, and let me just fill some random values. And if I do register, you can see now instead of coming back to the same page, it is telling me method not allowed. So this is because now the form is sending a post request, but in our routes, we have not handled any post request to this URL. So let's do that now. So for the register, let's once again. Yeah, let's create a same route. So app.route register only. But what we will do now is we will have the method equals post. So methods is a keyword argument which you give, which is an array. And if you are basically clubbing everything inside one method, you can do it methods equals get comma post. But then I prefer to have it separately so that we can easily see what is happening where. So the name of the function has to be obviously different. So for the get one, I'm just keeping it simply register. But for the post one, let's have it register underscore post. So what we will do in the post is basically, first we will see if the user has filled all the fields, right? So the username, the password, nothing should be empty. So first we will get all the fields. So we have the username, so which we will get from the request.form.get. And as you can see, it's asking what is request. So it does not know what request is. So request is basically another helper thing in Flask. So we don't have to actually read the headers and everything sent from the request. We can use this request variable. So we basically import it from the Flask itself. So from Flask, import request. And let me import some other things also. So we get the username like this using request.form.get username. So, and this string basically has to match the name which we have given here. So as you can see here, the input name is username. So the ID and all does not matter, but the name of the input, whatever is there, it should match what we write here. So if it was, let's say, user instead, so if it was, yeah, if it was user instead of username, then here I have to make it user as well. It has to be user here as well. So let's stick with username for now. And so what we will do is we'll get the username, we'll get the password. And I think we also have the confirm password. So that is called confirm underscore password. So we'll get that as well. All right. And we also have the name. So we'll get all the 4 variables. So let's just see if it's working now. So let's just do nothing else, just return what we got here. So let me just create a string, temporary string, which basically returns the username, the password, the confirm password, and the name which we got back to the user itself. So let's save this, and the if we have the Flask debug on, it will restart the server automatically. So we come back here, we reload the register page, and let me add something, user 111, password is 1234. This is again, let's say something else, and name is name1. So now you can see that instead of going back to the main page, we are getting the string returned to us where all the details are shown. So as you can see, all the things which we entered are exactly the same which is being shown. So this part is working now. So the method is able to get all the things from the form. So this is like in between debugging may be good when you're trying to create a big application, so that instead of making everything at once, just try to do some stuff and then check if it's working, and then we move on to the stuff. Yeah, Suresh.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I was not connected last 2 days, so I'm leaving now. I'll go through the last 2 recordings and then I'll come back from tomorrow.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Also, do go over today's recording as well.
Yeah, today recording also. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
sure, sure.
So basically, I just want to once sorry for others disturbing you. I just want to have clarity that these recordings, other than this, anything more I have to go through.
Yeah, so basically, we have a sheet. I'll send the link again in the G space.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
here you can find all the resources. So there are
Okay,
two pages basically. This is page one, and page two. You can click here to get to page two.
okay,
So what we are following is basically we are following one video as the main resource. So every day's session will be based on some part of that video. The timestamps are mentioned in each day. So day one is from 0 to 1 hour 9 minutes. Day two is from 1 hour 9 minutes to 1 hour 49 minutes, like that.
okay.
So before each session, if it's possible, just go over this part of the video, maybe in like 1.5x or 2x speed, because it's a slow video. So you can just skim over it.
Yes. Okay.
And in the session, we will cover not only this, but then also some of the extra agenda parts. And
Yeah.
then after each day's session, just learn or revise the things in the third column. And for doing this, I've added some additional resources in the second sheet. So
Okay.
uh, just the bold ones are more important than the unbold ones. But then, yeah, if you have time, go over all. If you don't, go over the ones in bold.
Okay. Fine. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's resume. So the register page, right? So we have got the the details of the form in the method. So what's next? Let us see that they have actually filled everything first. So let us do some basic checking. So what we can do is,
So can you please show the code?
yeah, sorry.
One thing that this name, when you get clicked on submit, how is it printing the username, password, and confirm password?
Yeah, so wait one second. Let me
What is the output?
get the code. Yeah, we are just simply returning.
I
So
return.
because it's
Right.
a app.route, right? Yeah. So whatever we return here, so it can be a rendered template. It can also be a string also. So a string returning is also possible. So because we're
Okay, but we are not
returning a
returning
string,
name anywhere, right? We are not returning name anywhere, right?
no, it's there. It's basically to the right
Okay,
side.
okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't see that.
It's a long string. Yeah. If it's fine, I'll turn on word wrap. Yeah. I think that this is better. Yeah, so we're returning a string with the username, the password, the confirmed password, and the name. So that's why when we register and give some details, so it will show all of this. So this is just, so this is not part of the actual code which we'll be making. This is just for us to see that, okay, these four variables were correctly populated. So these four things were working. So this is just for us to check. So we'll delete this now, this line. And now we will check if the things which the user has passed, if it's there. So username and password and confirm password, as you remember, it has to be there. So name can be empty, but the other three has to be there. We'll do that basic checking. We'll see if you not username. So not username basically means if username is empty, or not password, or not confirm password. So we will not check for not name. So what we will do is we will say, please fill out all these fields. So what is Flash? I'll get to this in like 15-30 minutes. So, and then we'll see what is Flash and how we implement that. But for now, let's just assume this is a way for us to give some message to the users. So if any of these is empty, we'll just say, please fill out all the fields. And now because they have not done it correctly, right? So we cannot move them to some other place. We have to move them back to the register page. So what we'll do is we'll say
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I think
Just give me
some
1 minute.
internet
Yeah.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought I got disconnected.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully I'm audible now. So yeah, sorry for the inconvenience. So if someone has joined only today, so yeah, this is something which happens every day. So
No, every day at 10:30 this happens, I believe.
yeah, something is wrong with my internet service provider. So yeah, sorry for the interruption. Let's resume. Yeah, so right now you can see that our form, the way we have created in the backend, like the code itself, right? So the username, the password, and the confirm password are required. So even from the front end, we are not allowed to send it. But the reason we do backend checks is that I'll show you that if someone, let's say, is trying to break your code, what they can do is they can just come to the like inspect of the browser, and they can easily just remove this part. So a front-end validation is basically only for the user convenience, so that they don't have to send a request, get to the backend, and then come back with error message. They can directly see that it is not working. But then it is never for security. So for security, we should always have a backend validation like we have here. So here now, if I press submit with an empty thing, so as you can see, it came back to the same page. Right. So this is because so the error message is right now not visible, but it is present with us. So after a few minutes, I'll go over how to see the error message as well. So right now, let's focus on how we can make the backend part first. So if the username is empty or the password is empty or the confirm password is empty, that is a red flag from the start, right? So we'll just return them to the register page. Now let's say if the three of them are not empty, but there are still, again, some checks we have to do. So first of all, can anyone tell me anything which we have to check from these, which has to match or something that has to be there?
Password and confirm
Yeah,
password.
exactly. Right. So we'll first check if password and confirm password are same or not. So if they are not, we'll then again send them some message that, okay, they do not match, please fix it. And we'll send them back to the register page. So the URL for, I guess we saw yesterday. So as I said, it will basically be used everywhere throughout all the days. So URL for is used in the front end in the Jinja to create links. URL for is also used in the backend when we want to redirect them to some other page. So yeah, so redirect will basically send them a redirect request instead of like directly rendering this template. We tell them, okay, so this did not work. You just go to this method and do whatever that method tells you to do. So for the password, we'll do this. So anything else which we need to check for registration when a new person is registering? Any?
Username is unique.
Yes, exactly. So we'll have to check if that username already exists or not. So now is the first time we'll see how we use the SQL Alchemy ORM to get and like put data into the database. So what we will do now is we will do user equals. User is name of the model which we declared in the models. So as you can see in the models, we had a class user. So this is the model which we will be using, but then it is not able to understand what this is. So there's a yellow line here. So what we have to do is we have to import that. So we will do some models, import PB, and then all of these we can import, but right now we only need the user. So now it is understanding what user is. So we basically query the user. So this is similar to doing a
So
SQL
can we
like.
here can we do from model import start? Everything can be import.
We can do, but then in Python, it is usually not a good practice. I'll show you what happens. If you do this, it should give you error message. Okay, maybe not, as I have the pilinter off. But yeah, so you can also do this. This will also work, but then it is not a good practice. You can definitely do this. Maybe you are changing the models .py now and then, so you don't want to come here and change everything. So yes, you can do this from models import star. But what this does is basically it creates confusion. So if you have multiple things like this, so from models import star, from app import star, so there is a basically collision. So if there is the same name in both of the libraries, then Python will use one over the other, but then the user will be confused which is being used. So for
So
that,
this is
it is
actually
usually not
confusing.
advised to.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's very confusing that what all libraries to import means. And
Yeah. You can do this. So this will basically import all the variables in that folder, in that file. But then yeah. So another thing is that you should know how your code is working, right? So if you're doing this is basically like, okay, I know I need to import something from models, let me just import everything. Whereas if you're importing, yeah,
Shayan, just to interrupt, sorry
yeah,
if I'm overdoing, but it's highly recommended to import whatever is required instead of star. That is
yes,
the standard, and I
yes,
believe that is the standard that we follow
yeah, yeah,
in the industry. Just
yeah.
just an update.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling, right? So usually it is recommended to import only what you are using. And so that does not create any other confusion because there may be 1,000 things declared in that file, right? So you don't know what you're using and what is required.
I can give you one some update maybe out of this. Say
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example,
sure.
if you are importing by star, then maybe later point of time after a year or so, if in case practically if you if you update some library or something like that, then that will create a problem.
Yes,
Classes will be depreciated and removed from the future versions, and
yes,
but still your code will not use it, but you will have to import and things like that. So you cannot able to
yes,
identify all those things.
exactly.
I'm sure that I'm deviating, but still just a point.
No, no, that's also part of the best practices, right? So we should definitely follow that. So let's say you do from models import star, and then right now you know models has 5 things, and you use all that 5 things. But then let's say you create some other variable randomly here, and tomorrow models also create something, some variable with the same name inside. So then that will create a conflict because you are importing everything from there. So even that variable will be imported. So it's better to only import whatever you're using. So we will right now import all the classes which we have. And so I'll not import just user because we need this also later. So I'll just import everything right now and we'll use this one by one later. So user is, yeah, so let me get back to where we were. So what we're doing now is basically this query is similar to the SQL query, right? So select star from like that. So what this is doing is this is going to the user model and it is querying using this filter username is username. So we are trying to see if in the database there already exists some user who has this username which is submitted in this form as their username. So if this exists, so there may be multiple also, but obviously not possible because username is unique. But in general, for filtering, there may be multiple results. So we do dot first to get just one result. So even if one person with this username exists, then obviously this is not possible. So we'll say if user, which means if this is not null, so if that user exists, then we'll tell the current person that, okay, this username is already taken. Please use some other username. So, and then we'll send them again back to the register page. So a few validations which we are basically doing, we are checking if it's empty, we are checking if the passwords are correct, and we are checking if the username is unique. So if all of that is true, then what we'll do is we'll basically create a new user. So if this is now null, what we'll do is we'll create a new user with all the attributes given. So username is username, and all right. So here, what will happen is, so we are storing the pass hash, right, not the password, but then the user will provide us the password. So instead of doing this, what we have to do first is create the password hash. So we'll create the password hash using a helper function in workzug. So we'll import that first. So what we'll do is from workzug, we'll .security, we'll import two functions, generate password hash and check password hash. So basically, password is something which usually you should not handle. So if it's possible, you should let someone else handle it. So like Google or something, and you can just allow sign in from Google. But obviously for like simple projects like this, we will not do that. So we'll just store the password, but then we should never store the password in plain text. So I have added a few resources in the sheet on why that's the case. I won't be covering in detail here. But then instead of coming up with all the things ourselves, we can simply use some library which has already figured out how to do that. So we'll use two simple functions from there. One is to generate the hash and one is to check if the password is correct. So we create the password hash using the generate password hash method. So we'll do generate password hash and we'll give it the password. And this hash is what we will store here instead. So this will not be password, this will be password hash. So we're never storing the actual password. We're just using that to create the hash and storing it. So that's all. So we have now created a new user. All we have to do now is basically save that into the database. So we'll do db.session.add and this variable. So this variable was our new user object, or basically you can think of it as a row in the database, and we are now appending that row in the database actually. And then we basically have to do a commit. So commit means that whatever I have done till now to the database, write that to the actual file, or make that change final. And so this is all we have to do for registration. So once the registration is done, you can take a design decision basically whether to redirect the user to the register page again or redirect to the login page. That's up to you. So for this, let us just redirect him to the login page. All right. Yeah.
Shan, I just have one question.
Yeah.
So, have you completed this?
Yeah, this part is completed. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. My question is here you created a DB session, right? So, I mean, based on my learning, maybe I need to something I need to unlearn. But DB.session, I mean, the session has to begin session and end session, things like that should happen, right? That will be taken care automatically by this
Yeah, that is
framework,
automatically.
or how that.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about the begin and end because as we said, right, so we are working with the ORM of SQL Alchemy directly instead of working with SQL queries. So we don't have to worry about starting the session, making transactions and all. So that is handled by SQL Alchemy. What we just have to do is we just have to like create an object of the model and then add it to the session and commit to the session. That's all.
Okay.
Can you share the GitHub link? Yeah, I'll add it to the sheet of resources. So the link of this one, right? Yeah, go ahead.
One more question. Maybe I just want to know whether you will be covering, say, for example, you have object, I mean, you have a foreign key reference and you need to find a category and add it to the product or something like that. In that case, whether you cover something scenario like that in maybe today or tomorrow session?
Yes, I am not sure if it's today or tomorrow, but that is definitely covered. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, so we don't actually directly work with foreign keys. So because we're using the SQL Alchemy, right? So we'll use the relationships which we declared in the models and we'll use that instead. Yeah, we'll cover that. We'll definitely make that. Yeah.
Sir, one more thing. I have trouble making the, like, when I was doing for the one project, I had trouble making the database. Means, what should I do? Means it's very difficult to think of a database because how many tables to choose, what attributes to choose. Means what should I do if I am having trouble?
Yeah, right. So, did you attend like the day one when we were discussing the database? One second, let me open that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you share the GitHub link for this database because this is very similar, so I can just check.
Yeah, I will share the link, but then I don't recommend copying it directly. Right. So the point of the bootcamp is to actually understand how to think of it yourself. So because your problem statement may be same, it may change also. So one second, let me save this and open that once. I'll just go over it briefly. So what you can do is you can go over the day one's recording. So what we did is we covered how to think of the database. So obviously at first you cannot just come up with the schema.
Yeah,
Sorry?
is it available with the sheet? Is it updated?
Yeah, everything is there. Yeah. The recording, the notes, everything is there. Yeah. So what you have to do is basically you have to think about first. You have to think about how the page should look, how the functionality should be there. So all of it comes to you in phases, right? So you cannot think of the model directly. So just think about the project for like 1 or 2 hours. Think about how the like flow should be. So how the pages should look, and then slowly you'll understand, okay, what are the things I need to store. So like designing the DB itself is like 1 or 2 days task, but then we went over it quickly. So then also a part of it is first creating the ER schema. So it helps you understand exactly how the entities are related and what are the relations.
So I have done this.
Yeah, just go over the
sir, I have done this, but the thing is that there are some 1 or 2 points which I have confusion. Can we have a one-on-one session and we can discuss where I'm getting stuck so that?
Yeah. Definitely.
And after
I
this
think
class,
after
we have
today,
this.
Yeah. So I think we'll finish by like 2 or 3 hours, and then after that we have doubts clearing only. So at that time we can cover that.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. So let me get back to day 3, yeah. So yeah, so any other doubts in this one, how we are basically adding things to the database? No, right? So, all right, let's see now if it is working. So we won't be able to log in, but then we can obviously open the database and see if it's working. So right now in the users, you can see there are no columns. So let me try to create something. All right, so I've filled up the form, and if I click on register, you can see now that I am redirected to the login page. So that is one good sign. So obviously the only place where we have redirected the user to login is at the end. So all of this did go through. So let's open the DB and refresh it. And all right, something is okay. It's definitely not added there. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's my bad because I forgot to turn on the virtual environment. So it basically created another DB here. All right. So it's there. Let me close this and run the VM first. 1 second. All right. And let me delete this. All right. So let me register again. So you can see in the instance DB, right now there are no users. And now if I create a user with my name and register, so we are redirected to the login page. And in the table now we have one new row, which basically has the username as username. And the pass hash, you can see it's some cryptic thing, right? So I'll not get into details how this is done. So there are a few resources in the sheet which go over how salting and hashing is done basically. So what they do is they take our password and then they generate a random key, which is like the first few letters of this, and then they use that to get a big random text, as you can see. So the main thing is we don't have to worry about this. So creating the hash and then the checking if the password is correct is done by this library itself. So we just call these functions to do the checking. So let's now create the login part as well. So the get request to the login will simply give us this login page. So as you can see, if we click on login, we get this login page where we have the form. So now when we do the post request, so it is giving us method not allowed. So that's because we're doing a post to login, but we don't have any method to handle that. So let's create that as well. So we'll do app.route login and method is post, and we'll give it a name like login post, something like that. And let me do it one by one. So yeah, what we will do next is basically for the login post, we don't have the confirm password and the name. We just have two fields, username and password. So similar to the registration, we'll just get that from the form using request.form.get. And yeah, so I don't like it's recommending everything from the start. Let's do it one by one. All right. So once we have got the username and password, the first thing we have to do is we will check if the username and password is present. So as we saw in the registration also, we'll check if it's empty or not. So if not username or not password, we'll just tell them to fill out all the fields. So after that, here we checked if a person with this username exists. So if it did, it was a bad sign. So we told if this user exists, then you cannot create a user with this. But now when we are logging in, the same thing we actually want it to be there. So if we are searching with this username and we get a user, then that's a good thing. So if this user is not present, then that means that this username is something that is wrong, or no user with this username exists in our database. So if not user, then we say that username does not exist, and we again redirect them to the login page. So finally, now the username and password is given. The username actually exists for a user. So the only thing we have to check is if the password given by them is actually correct. So because we're not storing the password directly, we cannot do something like if user dot password equals password, because we're not storing the password directly. And that is a very bad practice to store the password directly. So what we can do is we can use this check password hash. So this basically goes hand in hand with the generate password hash, which we use to generate it. So the check password hash method will check if the password hash which we have in the user and the password given by the user are basically the same thing. So, and if that is not the case, then again, obviously, we'll tell the user that, okay, your password is wrong, and then we'll again redirect them to the login. So if all of this is not happening, so if they are present, if the username is correct, if the password is correct, then finally we redirect them to the index page. So let's see if this is working now. Let's save this, and let's now open the login page. And let me first, so we have already seen that empty one will not work, so I'll not waste time showing that. Let me first give some other username. So let me give admin and try to log in, and it does not let us do that. So the error messages right now we can't see, and we'll do that in a while. But yeah, so, and now if I give, let's say, the correct name but the wrong password, then also we are not able to log in. We come back to the same page. So now let me do the correct username and the correct password. And now you can see that we got inside and we are now in the home page. So that is how we do the basic part of the login and register. So obviously we have not handled session till now. So we'll do that in a few while, in today's session only we'll do that. So, but then before that, this is basically how we structure the backend code for this. All right, so let's take some time to replicate the similar state to you. So now today, instead of basically freezing the screen, what I'll do is I'll push these changes to GitHub, and I'll let you get the file changes from GitHub itself. So I'll just first do git status. And as you can see, we have changed 3 files, the routes where we have changed the controllers, and the templates login and templates register, we basically changed the method, right? So if you remember, and you can see there's only one blue line here. So we only changed this part today. So I'll do git add dot, and I'll do git commit with a message that add controllers or register and login. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll do git push -u origin master. So what this will do is this will push this changes to GitHub. So now if I open this GitHub page, so right now the last commit, as you can see, is day 2. But after this is done, if I reload the page, last commit is now add controllers for register and login. So what you can do is you can click on that, and you will get to see all the changes that we have made. So it is more helpful than seeing the entire code, because you can now see exactly which parts of the code are changed. So the green means they are added, the red means it is removed, and you can go over these and update your code to the similar state. So I'll just give the repository link in the chat, and yeah, so let's take I think 15 minutes to do this. So yeah, let's reconvene at around 11:10.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have one question. So we had one method called flash, right?
Yeah.
So even though it is not defined or declared somewhere or imported from somewhere, but how it is not giving error or something, and it is executing correctly.
Yeah, so we did import it. I think I didn't go over it much, but then yeah, while we were importing render template and request and all, we also imported the Flash there. So yeah, I'll go over how Flash works. So at that time we'll go
Okay.
in depth in that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's resume by 11:10, let's say. All right. Yeah.
Shyam, are you there? Hello? Hello, Shyam. Shreyan, are you there?
Yeah, tell me.
I think you are speaking in mute.
Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, you are audible.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Prakash, can you hear me? I think some headphone issue from his
Yeah,
side.
I can hear you. Sorry, Shreyan.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, yeah. Tell me.
Can you open the login, I mean, registration screen? Because I can see a flash coming up when I didn't give username and password. But if I give a different password for both confirm password and password, I'm not seeing the flash string.
Yeah. So we'll basically do the flash one after this. So just give
Okay.
me 3 more minutes.
Okay.
We'll resume at 11.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So hopefully all of you have basically synced up to the state we are in. So let's resume from where we left off. So what we last saw was that we were now able to register and log in properly. And we were also sending some error messages, but then let's now discuss what this flash is. So just let me know if I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. So in the resources, you can see Yeah, Flask message flashing. So we can go to the documentation and see what flashing is and how it works. So basically, there are many ways to give some message from the backend to the front end, right? Without changing, like opening a totally new page. So one such easy way is the Flask flashing. So it's something that's inbuilt inside Flask itself. So what we have to do is, first of all, from Flask, we have to import the flash method. So it's a method, and which we have done here. So I did not, I think, explicitly tell this, but then yeah, while we were importing request and other things, we imported flash also. So from Flask, we have to import flash, and that is basically the method which we use. So as you can see here, we are basically, it's just a simple method where you just send the string which you want to flash. So one thing you need is, for the flash to work, it has to work on sessions. So it will require you to create the secret key. But then if you remember, we already did that in our env. So we did secret underscore key as some random number. So you can set it to anything. And then we loaded this using our config. So os.get and secret key is app.config secret key. So we can skip this part. So now basically the way it works is you just send the message in from the controller using this method. So the backend part is very simple. In the front end, how do we show the message is basically using some Jinja templating. So in Jinja, what we can do is we can copy this, and then I'll explain how it works after we have copied it. So instead of like putting the same thing in every page, so in register and then in login, what we can do is we can directly put it in the layout, so that in every page we get the messages, error messages, if there are any. So after the nav bar and then before the main body starts, let me just paste this part and let me indent it properly. All right, maybe not that much. All right, yeah. So what this is basically is, this is also a Jinja syntax with messages equals get flashed messages. So this is similar to how with in Python works. So that is for opening files and stuff, and we can also use that for the context, right? So if you remember, in the mods.py we used with app.context db.create all. So similarly, we use with messages equals get flashed messages. So this get underscore flashed underscore messages method is also from the Flask package. And what this does is basically see all the messages that have been sent to this user and store that in a messages array. So I'll briefly touch upon how Flash works, but then you don't need to know this to implement it. So basically, for each user, so let's say user 1 is there and then user 2 is there. So they may have different sets of messages sent to them, right? So let's say both of them are trying to access our application. So this is our application. There's a front end, there's a back end. And in the back end, after doing some processing, we told that, okay, there's one error E1, which I want to send to U1. And there's some error E2, which I want to send to E2. So if I just have one place where I'm just storing all of them E1, E2, there's no way for me to show only E1 to U1 and only E2 to U2. So they can see both of them. So what we do is basically we use cookies and sessions. So hopefully you remember that from MAD1. So cookie is basically a small piece of random text which the browser stores in its memory, and they send it with every request. So whenever they're sending the request, they're sending the cookie also. And with that, the backend is able to understand, okay, you are actually user 1 and you are actually user 2. So we'll get into this more when we are doing the authentication part. But that is basically how Flask handles user differentiation. So basically, whenever we are doing flash in the backend, the flash message, and giving some string here. So this basically, first of all, says that, okay, check what is this user's cookie, or what is his session. So it sees if the cookie is there. If not, it creates a session and tells the user's browser to remember that session. And it in the basically the log of all the messages left to be seen, it adds that message along with the session details. And so whenever then someone uses this get flashed messages, so it then again comes to this place and it sees what is their cookie. And with that, it understands which is their session. So there may be multiple error messages, some with session 1, some with session 2. like that. So it will see, okay, this person's session should be session 1. So this is the error which belongs to him. So that error is shown to that person. So that is basically how Flash works. So we don't have to get into the details because everything is abstracted out for Flask for like by Flask for us. So we just use this with messages is get equals get Flash messages. And then we see if any message is there. So basically this is a list, right? And in Python, you can check if a list has more than 0 elements using the if. So you can also do it if len of messages is greater than 0, but then this is a shorthand for that. So if messages exist, yeah, Prakash.
So one thing, I mean, I'm not getting the context of two users because this is a front end validation or the a pop up or something kind of, right? So why we are talking about two different users when a single user is going to use the browser and do something? I'm not getting that context.
Yeah, sure. So not at all, right? So when the backend is doing the validation, it's not front-end validation. So the front-end validation is
Okay,
just the
this came here. Okay,
yeah,
I got it. Yeah.
yeah. So
Thanks.
front-end validation is done directly when we are doing like this required. So this browser itself handles. We don't have to do anything. But then in the backend, when we are checking and returning these messages, right? So this is done by the backend. So this may be given to one user, it may be given to another user also, right? Because the backend serves all the users' requests.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what we do is we basically check if any messages are there, and then using the if and then the for. So if the messages are there, we create a list basically. So this is a simple HTML list, unordered list, and then we iterate over all the messages. So for message in messages, so we go over each message one by one, and we just show that message as a list item in the top. So this is not a very good looking way to show the messages, but we can do this to see all the messages shown to us. So right now you can see all the messages which we did not see till now, they are shown. But if I reload now, they will be gone. So another thing which this method does for us, so we don't have to do, is it remembers if you have seen a message or not. So once you see a message and show it to the user, it will automatically mark it as done. So it will remove it from the list. So if I reload, I won't see the same message again. So this is basically a quick way for us to show messages without getting into much implementation details. So now let's make the alert a little more beautiful. So right now, if you see the alert, so if I give some wrong username, it is like bad looking list, right? So let's see how we can use Bootstrap to beautify it. So if you search here for alert, you can see that there are basically this banner type of thing, right? So this is exactly what we want to do. So we'll simply copy the danger one, which is the red one, and we will put it in our here. So instead of a UL, so I'll remove the UL and I'll remove the closing UL. And here basically I'll get that and I'll paste it. Sorry, yeah. So this is basically a div container, nothing else. But then these classes are basically what allows Bootstrap to show the message. So I'll remove this li message, and instead of this random text, I will put the message which we have. So now what will happen is the same errors will be shown, but then in a more beautiful manner. So you can see now it's looking a little better than earlier. So that's the basic of flashing error messages, and later on we'll also see how to change the colors and all. So right now let's not worry about all that. So I think you were saying that if the confirm and the normal password do not match, then it's not showing, is it? Let us see, 1 second. Let's say I create admin, and then so let's not create admin.
How is it selecting the appropriate message? Can you just
yeah, sure. So basically, yeah. So basically, there's a stack, you can say, or a list of a place where all the messages are stored, right? So this is basically a global messages bucket, you can think. And whenever, so the backend is creating a message, right? So the backend creates the messages using this flash function. So whenever this is called, it creates a message. So it does two things basically. One thing, we can see that the message is like the string is added. So it creates a message to put in that bucket. And one thing is the actual message body or the string which we are giving. Another thing is the session details or the cookie details. So both the things are stored in here, and this is basically the text for the user to see, and this is just for to identify which user to show the message to. So when then in the front end we do the get flashed messages, right? So it then comes to the bucket and sees what are the messages there which has the session of this current user. So it filters all the messages and only gets the messages for that user, and it shows that message. And another thing which it does is once it has shown that, it will remove it from the bucket, so that when the person, let's say, reloads the page or something, the same message is not shown multiple times, right? So it's only shown once. So hopefully that is clear, right? So let's try it out a few more times.
Yes.
We'll get a better idea. So let's say right now there are no messages. So let's say I give some wrong username and I log in. So the backend in here in the login post, it will see that this one user, it will try to fetch a user with that username, and it will give us null, right? Because no user with that username exists. So this will be true, and it does this flash username does not exist. And it will now do redirect to the login page. So now we are getting back to the login page, and the login page, if you see, it extends the layout, right? So that's how we basically created the page. So the main content is inside, but then it extends the layout. And in the layout, you can see that in the top, we are doing this part where we are calling the get flashed messages function. So this will then basically checks all the list of messages and sees, okay, there is one message for this user, which is this one, username does not exist. So then that is added to this messages variable as a list. And then because there's only one message, so it will iterate over it only once. But then you can assume that maybe that person did many things wrong at one time. So let's say I do this flash 5 times. So what this will do is it will create multiple messages for that user in that same bucket. And then when he calls this get flashed messages, this array will have all of those. So I can just iterate over them one by one and then create all those divs. So let me do this again. I'll give some wrong username. And now you can see there are multiple messages, right? So however many we add in here, it will get added to a like thing that is managed by Flask itself.
Because we have added only one this thing. So this is showing only one message.
Yeah, exactly. So even if, let's say, I flash something, but then the user is sent to a page which does not have this one, right? So right now we have it in layout, so it is always shown. But then let's say there's some page where this is not shown. So the message is not forgotten. It will stay in the session, and whenever the user comes back to any page where we are fetching the message and showing it, it will show them. So if there are like 5-6 messages pending, it will show them all of them at once. So this is basically how we show messages from the backend to the front end without doing anything from our side. We can simply use the flash thing in the Flask present itself. And this part is just for styling it pretty. So we are using Bootstrap to style it.
And when we're using Flash, like that message, the error thing which we uploaded in the app tab UI, can you just show that? It's right.
This
Flash
one, right?
message. No, this one app in the register. If not username or password or not confirmed password, Flash. So this is also error for the error, na?
Yeah, exactly, same thing. So let me show you. So let me go to the register and remove that front end validation. And yeah, let me remove the required part from here, and let me send an empty thing with this password. So if I do that, it will basically do the same thing, right? So it will come here, it will see this is empty. So it will do this flash, please fill out all fields, and it is redirecting me to the register page again, right? So I come back to the register page, and because the register inherits the layout, in the layout we have this messages thing. So this thing is actually always present, but when there are no messages, this is basically nothing is shown here. But then when there are messages, it will show them one by one on top of each other. So right now it's telling me, please fill out all.
My point was that if we can use Flash, then why are we using messages? Like we can Flash the customized message, then why are we using messages?
So this flash is exactly what is sending the message which we are seeing here. So I'm sending the message here, and I'm seeing this here because I have this in the layout. So if I, let's say, remove this, then the message is sent, but nothing is shown to the user. So let's say I again come back and I give some username which already exists, right? So it will come back to this page. It will have the error in the queue, but it's not showing to us. So this part is for us to send the message, and then this part is for us to see the message in the front end. So both go hand in hand. So let me do the same thing multiple times. So the message is being sent, but then it's not being read. So it will just pile up. So I'll have multiple messages in my message bucket. And then when I again put it back, let's say I again put this back. So this is basically the same thing. So one second, let me create a new page. Yeah, so Flash will create the message and it will add it into the bucket. So it will add the message to the bucket. And then get flashed messages will read it. So you need to make the message and read the message, right? So that is how it works. So this will then show it to the user. Yeah, so if I put it back now, and if I just reload this page, you will see all the things which we did not read earlier, it now shows. Password does not match, username exists, username exists. So yeah, we need both of them. So one is to send the message and one is to show it to the user.
Okay.
Yeah, got it, right? So yeah. So yeah, so we were trying to see if the password matching thing works. So I think yeah, we already saw it. Let's see. So let me create some other user and let me give password as 1234 and confirm password as 5678. So you can say it's telling password does not match, right? So maybe see if you have done this code correctly, Prakash. See that this part you have written that if password does not equals confirm password.
Yeah, I got it correct, Shyam. Thanks for asking.
All right, yeah. Perfect. So yeah, let's move on now. So we have seen how to create the login and register controllers, and we have also seen how to show the errors and also how to hash the passwords. So another part of the project is that we need to have admin page, right? So an admin user. But right now, as you can see, when we are logging in the login post, we are creating a new user. When we're doing a register, we are creating a new user, but then we are setting, we're not setting that is admin. So if you remember in our models, in the user, we have the ID, username, password, name. So ID is automatically set. We don't have to worry about that. So we set these three, but then we are not setting the is admin. And that is fine because by default, it is set to true. So we don't have to explicitly set it. But when we are creating an admin, we have to basically set this one also as true. But then you may be wondering, should we allow people to register as admin or not? But then that will become useless, right? So any normal user can just tell, okay, I am an admin and register as an admin, and they get all the admin privileges. So we usually don't allow people to register as admin. So the register form will only register them as user, and we will not have any admin registration form. So how we will create an admin is basically whenever the code is running, we will see first that does any one admin user exist or not. So if not, we will just create one by ourselves in the backend, and we'll set a default username and password for that. And any admin who is basically running the project for the first time, they can then log in with that credential and change the password to whatever they want. So let us see now how we can create a default user, like admin user. So what we'll do is in the models, so after we have defined the models, we have created the database. So after we have created the database, just after that, what we need to do is we need to see if admin exists, else create admin. So first what we will do is we'll fetch the admin. So admin we will fetch using the user.query.filter, and we will not actually filter by username is admin because the username may be something else also. What we will filter is by using the is admin parameter. So we will see if is admin is true. So from the users table, get all the people whose is admin attribute is set to true, and get just the first one. So we just want to see if there exists at least one. So even if the first one exists, then it exists. So, but then if it does not exist, so if not admin, what we do is we create the admin. So we'll just do admin is username, and we can set a default here. So we'll say admin is username is admin, and a password. So we don't obviously hard code the password hash, right? So again, we'll do the same thing. So we'll do password hash is generate password hash of the default password, which is admin. And I'll import this 1 second. So here we need to import from workzone security, import generate password hash. So what we'll do is we'll create a password with the word admin, and the username will be admin, and we'll just set the password hash to the password hash and is admin to true. Let me set the name also. So name is admin,
So what is the
maybe a
decorator?
capital A, and then is
App
admin.
dot context with
Sorry?
app dot context.
Uh, Yeah. So it's not a decorator. This is basically, so once this is loaded, right? So it will see that if the app's context is present. So context is something which is a little more in depth of Flask. So I'll not cover what that is. So basically, once the app is initialized, we need to wait for the everything about the apps to be present, and only then we can work on it. So instead of pushing the context and then getting here, we can use this with app.app context, and what this will do is it will only enter this block once the context is created. So it will just call the app.app context, and the app will export the context. And you can think of it like waiting for the Flask app to be ready, right? And then we also have basically we know what are the things used by the Flask, and then we can do the things which we need to do. So for example, we can
Is it
create all the tables. Yeah,
like without using the form
go
you
ahead.
can create something? That is what we are doing here.
Yeah, so we are not allowing any user to create an admin, right? So we will do it in the backend ourselves. So just when the the server is started, so we don't do it every time. Just once when the server is started, we first of all check if the database is there or not. So we create it, and after that we check if admin is there or not. So if not, we then create an admin user. So this will be run only once each time the server is created. But then we also don't want to keep on adding admin users. So we just check if admin already exists. So if an admin already exists, then we don't do anything. But if there are no admins in the database, then we create a default admin basically with the credentials admin. All right, so hope this part is clear. So we create this object, and then obviously we need to do the db things, right? So db.session.add and then db.session.commit. So this will now finalize the admin. So now you can see in the database right now, we have just one user. And now if I save this, so this will rerun the Flask server. And now if I come here and reload, you can see there's an admin here. So this is basically one of the core requirements of the project, right? So creating admin credentials automatically when the when the project is run for the first time. So this we can do simply by using this part of the code. So inside, after creating the database, we just check if an admin is there, and if not, we create the admin. All right. So now if I try to log in as an admin, I will be able to log in, and then so the user exists, and then I can log in as an admin. So that is how we can create a default admin when no admin exists. But now if I, let's say, restart the server, it will not create another admin. So if I stop the server and then start the server again, so it will not create another instance of the admin, because it will see that there's already one user who has is admin to true. So these admin is true, so it will not do anything. So it will only do when there are no admins. All right. So let's now also try to see what authorization is. So right now you can see I can come to the login, and if I give some wrong thing, it will not let me proceed, and I have to give the correct username and the correct password. Only then I can proceed. But then this is just a redirection, right? So instead of login, if I just change the URL, then I am in. So there's no real security here. So this is not actually any authorization or authentication being done. So this can be done in multiple ways. We can use some Flask frameworks like Flask Security or Flask Login. But for this session, we will cover a very simple way to do this. So that is using the Flask session. So as we discussed earlier, how the session works. So you can also look up, so if you don't remember what cookies and sessions are, you can revise that after this session. So basically, when the user first time opens a website, right? So let's say this is our backend, and this is basically the website that they open. So if the user first time opens the website, it will send a request to the backend, and it will send back the normal response, but it will also say, okay, I don't want to forget who you are. I want to remember who you are. So this is most probably the first time you're opening. So you are a new user. So just store this cookie that I'm giving to you. And browsers automatically support these cookies. So what they will do, so they'll not tell you or show you anything. They'll simply internally, they'll just store this cookie in its memory. So the browser has a memory in it where they store the session cookies. So it'll just store that cookie there. And the browser also knows that after this, whenever they send the request to this same URL, so it's based on each URL, or basically the first part of the URL. So whenever they're sending any request to this place, they will send that cookie again. So the backend, when it sends this cookie, it basically in a list of its memory, it stored that, okay, this cookie, let's say cookie 1. So this cookie 1 is for a new user who just came. So it will know how to uniquely identify it. So next time when the browser again sends a request, it will send that C1 cookie to the backend, and the backend will see, oh, that this is sending a cookie. That means this is not a new user. This is a user who already came earlier. So I should know who this is. So it will then come to this session table or cookie table, and it will search for cookie C1, and it will see, okay, C1 exists. So it will know who exactly this person is, and whatever we need to store about him, we can also store about him in this place. So then the code can proceed like that. So the way we implement authentication is basically similar. So what we will do is, when you, let's say, want to, from the website, you want to access the slash, or let's say some page like profile. So I want to access profile. So what the backend will do is, backend will tell, do you have a cookie? So the page for the first time obviously does not have a cookie, right? So it'll say, if you have no cookie, I won't let you enter. So it will not even render this page. It will send him back to the slash login page. So it will go and first log in, and you send me a cookie, and only then you can come in. So what then the user will do is, basically they will be forced to log in. So anytime they try to again come back here, they'll be redirected directly to the login page. So now in the login page, they will like if they have an account, they'll log in. If they don't, they'll go to the register page and create an account. That's not our issue. So once they've created the account and they've logged in, so then they'll come to the backend again, telling that, okay, sir, I have logged in, and this is my credentials. So first, of course, it will check, right? So what we did, that it will check if the credentials is correct or not. But now if the credentials is correct, it will say, okay, fine. So you are now logged in, and I will remember you using this C1 cookie. So please store it. So then the browser automatically stores that cookie in its memory. And again, when he tries to access the page using this the same browser, what happens is the C1 cookie is sent to the backend again. And now the backend says, okay, cookie is there, so I can send you this page. So only if cookie is present, some pages like profile or a slash or something like that can be shown. But if cookie is not present, then I'll tell you to go to login first, and then authenticate yourself and get a cookie signed from me. And only then, if you come with that cookie, you can see this page. So that is the overall detail. So obviously, I have not gone much in depth into it, but we don't have to worry about it, because as with everything, Flask handles it for us pretty efficiently. So we don't have to actually handle cookies or sessions at all. So everything will be handled by Flask. The only thing which we need to do is, we need to import a function called, or a variable called session. So from Flask, along with all this, what we do is we import session. And session is basically like a dictionary, but then it will store for each user separately. So right now you can see, even if I open in incognito and I go to this location, I can directly open, right? So we don't need to log in or anything. So this we will fix by creating an authentication. So what we need to do is, first in login, or let's do for the index first. So in the index, what we will do is, we will not directly let them see the index, right? So as we said, first we will check if they have a cookie. So we will see, let's say, so one thing we have to decide for ourselves is what we want to call that in the memory of the server. So let us call it user ID in session. So we'll see if the session which we imported now has a user ID. So if session.user ID exists, then I will let them see this. Otherwise, so if basically that person is not authenticated, right? So then I will redirect them. So else I will return redirect to the login page. So I'll tell them, okay, you are not authenticated, please log in. And this may be like a little bit confusing that, okay, why am I going to login instead of index? So I'll also add a message to them that please log in to continue. So now you can see if I try to reload this page, oh, okay, wait. Sorry, yeah, that's not how you do it. You basically have to check if the key is existing. So we'll see if user ID key is in session. So if in the session the user ID key exists, then we do this. Otherwise, we redirect them. Yeah. So now if I just go to the main page, it will not go anymore. So if, as you can see, if I remove the login part and just go to the slash, it will still come to the login part, and it's telling us please log in to continue. So this guard thing we have already done now in the slash. Now what we have to do is we also have to let them get the cookie, right? So in the login now, if the so first we will do all the checking, normal checking, that if anything is wrong, we'll just send them back. But in the end, if everything is correct and they have given the correct one, so not just return redirect to index. So right now, as you can see, if I give the correct and login also, then also it's coming back here. So what we will do now is we will now store their session in our memory. So then we will say session user ID, and we can store any unique ID here, but then for easy access, we will store that user's ID. So that user.id we will store. So user is basically the user who logged in. So we'll store that in our session. And let us also give a message that you have successfully logged in. So now if I go to the main page, it's not letting us enter. But now if I log in with the correct credentials, you will see login successful. And now we have been able to successfully come to the slash page. So now if I close this tab and then again open it and then again go to the same page, it will still remember us. So we don't have to log in every time. And it is remembering us because the backend sent us something called a cookie, and the browser does not tell us anything about it, but it is smart enough. So it knows I should save that cookie and I should send that cookie every time I am requesting this page. So if you want to see that cookie, you can basically right click and go to inspect. And then you can go to this application tab. And here, if you come here, you can see in storage, there are multiple storages, but there is a cookie here. And if you click on this, you can see, okay, there's a session cookie, which the backend sent to the website through the browser, and the browser has saved it. So you can see if I delete it, if I press the delete key on my keyboard and delete it from my front end. So if I reload now, the backend will forget who I am. So it will be like, who are you? We don't have any cookie. So it will send me back to the login page, and again, I have to log in to continue. So that is how we perform a basic authentication check. And so basically remember that to not do this checking in the login itself. So if you basically do the same thing, so if you say in the login itself that I won't let you enter if you are not logged in, so that creates a paradox, right? So let's see what happens if I do this in login. So if I do this and I say, if you are logged in, then only I'll let you come to the login page. Otherwise, I'll tell you, oh, please log in to open the login page. So if I do that, it will be a bit paradoxical, and what will happen is it will create an infinite redirection, right? So if you do this now, and if you try to open the login page, oh wait, I think I did not save it. 1 second. All right. Yeah, so if you open the login page, okay, I don't know why it's working. It should not be working. Oh, because we are already logged in. Yeah, my bad. So let me remove that cookie now. All right. So let's assume someone is not logged in, and if they try to open the login page, basically it will break the website, right? So as you can see, too many redirects, and also you can see in the terminal that they basically try to go to login, and that redirect to login, and that redirect to login, and so on. So make sure you never do this in the login or register page. So these pages are something which even unlogged in people should be able to access. So for login and register, we simply let them access. But for other pages, we do this checking first. And as you can see, there are lots of messages also. So we can just reload to remove that. And yeah, now we can log in to go to the main page. So I'll also now move into decorators, but then I think it will be too much content to sync up to. So should we first sync to this much first, and then we'll continue after like 5-10 minutes?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe,
So
maybe 20 or 20 minutes.
yeah. So let's
Big chunk of work which
yeah,
we need.
let's continue from at 12 then. Hope that's fine. So 15
B12
minutes.
then?
Yeah. So let me push all the changes now. So first I can see what changes I made now. So we have made some changes in models. We've made some changes in routes. Also the layout, right? So we added the flash thing in layout. So I can also do git diff to see what I have made the changes. So yeah, in the models, we basically created the default admin, right? And then in the routes, we basically made that authentication check. And we also added the flash. And then in the layouts, we created the alert thing at the top. So I'll git add everything, and I'll get commit with the message. What we did is flash, and we did authentication. All right, so I'll now git push this, and yeah, this is just a shortcut I have saved in my system, so don't worry about this. This is basically same as git push origin master, this one. All right, so now if you open the repository, you will see that the last commit is this one, flash and auth. So you can click here and you can see all the changes that we have made. And you can also, I think, get the entire thing, like entire file also here. So yeah, just sync up to this changes, and then we'll resume from, let's say, 12 or 12.5.
Maybe 12:10?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Lots
Can
of
I
things.
share? Yeah. Can I share my screen so that I just need one
Yeah,
chat?
sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just share the screen. Sorry, if you're going to take a break, I just take 2 minutes of your time.
Sure, that's fine.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. So basically, I'm getting a small this alert thing is moved a bit. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
You can see wait. Yeah, I'll just show us code. I just try to rectify it myself, but I'm facing some problem. So here's the nav bar, and here is what we done that flashing thing.
Can you open that website and then open the inspect element? Yeah, and then just click on that, or like hover your mouse over that alert. Oh, I think it's not okay. See at the bottom, like to the left of the elements word, there is, to the leftmost, there are arrow key.
Yeah.
No, like at the top in the header of that, like you can see multiple tabs, right? Element, console, sources.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the leftmost thing, there's a button, arrow button, at the leftmost, like leftmost side.
Yes.
Yeah. Just click that and then hover over the alert. Yeah. All right. So there shouldn't be something. So there's
Yeah.
doesn't, I can't see if anything which is causing this issue. So yeah, basically some HTML, CSS like styling issue, right? So yeah, right now it's not apparent to me what's the case. Maybe you can open the navbar HTML in the code.
Yeah. I thought the container class is creating the issue, so I removed it even. But still,
No, it won't be due to the container.
here nav bar.
Uh,
So here we had the class container class actually. So I reload it. So I thought that is so here now. That's not an issue. I thought I can, if you can easily find it out, I thought I can get it.
Yeah, no, I can't see why it's happening like directly. We'll have to like
Okay.
play a little bit with it to see.
Okay, not an
Yeah,
issue. I'll manage with it. Thank
sure,
you.
sure. Yeah. All right. So hopefully all of you have synced up to this message. So if anyone faced any issues while doing till here, just let me know. Or if you have any doubts with whatever we have covered till now, right? Because we covered a lot of things till now. All right. So let's resume now. So now that we have done the basics of like creating admin and then a few controllers, we'll create one more controller and one more page today, which is the user profile page. So let's start off. So we'll soon deviate from that to something else and then come back to the profile. But let's start off with it. So first we'll create the routes in the routes, right? So after all this, we'll create a profile route. We'll do app.route, let's say /profile. So this will be a simple my profile page and we'll name it profile. And what will happen here is we'll basically show them some profile details. So we'll have some return render template, profile.html. And I'll quickly create a simple template also in the templates called profile.html. And as always, we'll do the extends and we'll extend from the layout so that all the basic things are always there, like the nav bar and the messages. And then what we'll do is we will create the block. So j.block for the content and for the title also. So we'll create a title block and we'll put profile page there, and here we'll say, let's say, hello, and then the user's name. So how do we send this user's name? What we do is we basically put a comma here in the render template and we say user is this user. So let me fetch the user first. So I'll say user is the user.query.get session ID. So we already stored the user's current logged in user's ID in the session dictionary, right? So we'll just fetch it from there and we will send it in the render template as user. So user is user. So right now, as you can see, we are logged in. And if I now send this to the profile, we can have this user variable, and then we can use the user.username to greet them. So for each user, it will show something else. So for me, it will show me hello and then my name. For someone else, it will show hello and then their name. All right. So if we now reload this page and go to the /profile, you can see it's telling hello admin. And if someone logs in as my account, so let me open this and go to the login first. So if I log in as my account, and then if I go to /profile, it'll tell me my name instead. So this is a simple login page. We'll add to it later. But then one thing you can quickly see is that, let's say, let me close and open the incognito again. And now if I open the main page, you can see we are not logged in, so it's asking me to log in. But let's say I open the profile page now. So as you remember in our routes, in the index, we did the checking, right? So let me move this below 1 second. So yeah, so in the index, we have done this checking that if user ID exists in this session, only then show this, otherwise redirect to login. But remember that we forgot to do this in the profile. So what happens now is if I go to this page, it will give some error. And this is basically because I'm trying to use this user ID in the session to get the current user, but then the user is not even logged in. So I don't even have that. So we're getting this error. So what we do is we simply do the same thing as this one here. So we'll check if the user ID exists, then we will do this one. So we'll delete till here and then we'll paste it here. And we'll remove this and this. All right, so what we are basically doing is we're seeing if the user is authenticated, then fetch who that user is and tell him hello by rendering that. Otherwise, send him to the login page first. So if I do this now, as you can see, even if I go to this profile page, it will not crash. It will just send me back to the login, and I can then log in and I'll get the main page. And then if I go to the profile page now, it is working fine. So can anyone tell me, like, obviously everything is working, but then what is something that may become a problem soon, like once our code expands? So what is something maybe which does not look right, something maybe which we are doing incorrectly or multiple times? Anyone? Any ideas?
Maybe the login which we are trying to do multiple places. Checking
Yeah.
the login.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we are checking if this part basically. So if, and then the else part. So this part is different for every one of them, and whatever we are doing also inside is different. So this here we are doing two things, here we are doing just one thing, but this basic checking and then whatever we are doing in the else is always the same. And let's say we create like 10 different routes, we have to copy paste the same thing 10 times. So there's obviously a better way to do this, and the way is something called decorators. So I will expect that you have some basic remembrance of what was decorators from the Python course. If not, also you can refer to resources in the sheet after this so that you can get the basic ideas. I'll not delve into the technical details. I'll just go over how it is basically designed. So what happens is basically what you want to do is for each method. So let's say the user comes to the slash, basically the home page. So first we are doing some if checking, and if it's true, then we are doing something. So let's say I'm showing him the home page. So let's say all the things which we do in the home page is just one function in home. And else we are doing some redirection. So we tell him a flash, and then we do a redirect to login. Like, so this is basically the basic structure of this. And then similarly, we are doing this for profile also. So let me preface it with the title. All right. So even if we are doing it going to the profile, and then later on this will happen for all other routes also. So what we'll do is we'll do first a check, and then if that is true, then we show or do everything we need to do for profile. Otherwise, we do the same thing, right? So we ask them, like, we'll give them a message using flash, and then we'll redirect. So you can see this part, which is the if checking, and then the else, and then the things we are doing in the else, that's always the same, right? So instead of doing it like this, what we can do is we can have one method which will always just check. So it will just check if it is true, and then what will be done is not fixed here, but then it knows that if it is not true, then I have to do this flash, and then I have to do this redirect. So this part is there in a method, let's say auth required. So this will be a method which we always call. So what we can do is then in this method, I can tell him what to do. So let's say I tell auth required, we give him a function fx, and we can, in general, yes, in Python, we can pass a function to another function as a parameter. So that's something we can do, which is, and this is in general called a higher order function. So that's something you can read up later. So basically a higher order function which basically takes a function as a parameter or returns a function as a parameter. So I give it a function here. So this is a function, and I tell that, okay, do this checking, basic checking, whether the user exists. And if it does, then call this function. And if it does not, then do all this. So I can create a function like this, and then I can basically say that whenever I want to go to, let's say, home, or just the / which goes to the home. First, we basically do the auth required, and there if it's true, then we go to the home, or we call the home method. Similarly, when we want to go to the profile, what we do is we first we call the auth required instead. So we call auth required, and we send it the function, the profile function instead. So the main function which does the checking remains the same, and whatever is executed inside depends on the argument. So this in general can be done using a decorator. So what is a decorator? It's nothing but a fancy way of doing the same thing. So if you remember, we have already used something like app.route, etc. So this at sign with something followed by it is basically how you define a decorator. So what a decorator is, let's say, so here we are not defining this decorator. This already exists in the Flask library, and we are just using it. And what we will be doing now is we will be both creating and using a decorator. So how we do is we basically create a decorator, and then while using it, we use the at with the decorator name before the actual function. So what this does is basically it reassigns the function from its original definition to, let's say the decorator was D1, and we use D1 above the function fx1. So what it does is it internally assigns fx1 to D1 of fx1. So it tells, okay, when I am calling this, don't call fx1 directly, pass it through D1 first and do whatever it needs to do, and then call the function if it is correct. So we'll not get into details of that. So we'll just see how to define this. So what I'll do now is I'll create the basic decorator here. So let me just create some differentiation. And then here we'll create the decorator for auth required. All right, so what we will do is we'll basically first define the decorator. So it will be called auth underscore required. And this one will take a function, let's say func. And what we will do here inside is basically we'll define some other function which the auth required should return. We'll define a inner function, let's say, and it may take any arguments and keyword arguments, right? So it may take any args and quargs. So this is basically a Python syntax of unpacking multiple arguments and unpacking multiple keyword arguments. So we don't have to understand how this works. This is basically how we are going to take any parameter of arguments. So I don't have to worry about what is the signature of the functions. And what we do is we basically do this check, right? Which we are always doing, that if user in session. So we do this check inside this function, that if the ID is in session, if that is true, then we return that function instead. But if that is not true, then what we do is we return, first we tell that please log in to continue, because we cannot do this without logging in. And then we redirect them to the login page instead. So that's how the basic auth required function works. And then what we'll do is we will return this inner function as the return of the outer function. So we'll return inner. I know it is a bit confusing looking at all this, but then you don't have to worry about how it's working, because this is something we will define only once and then use after that. So another thing which happens is basically now if you do this and if you put it in the route, what will happen is right now we have that the / is mapped to the index named function and / profile is mapped to the profile named function. But then as soon as we do this, basically, so as soon as we use the auth required here and the auth required here, so what happens is now the / is mapped to the auth required function. The / profile is also mapped to the auth required function. So obviously, as the parameter is different, so what it will be running will be different. But Flask sees this and Flask freaks out, right? So if I try to save this and run this, so you will see that it will give you an error. It is telling that, okay, multiple endpoints are mapped to the same function. So we know that although the function is same, it is doing different thing based on what is passed. So as you can see, it is taking basically a function and it is running that function instead. But Flask will not understand this. So Flask will freak out that how can you map the same method which is auth required to both these endpoints? So what we can do is a very simple fix around is we can import another module which is called functools, and from there we can import the function called wraps. And what wraps does is basically it also does some internal working around, and what it does is it will change the name of the function which is returned. So instead of all the functions being named inner, which is being returned, it will set its name different for each function. So we'll just put a decorator in that as well, and now whenever it is returning something, so each function's name will be different. So don't have to worry about how this is working too much, just that this is how we define our decorator.
Shyam, why we are doing that? I didn't get that point properly.
Yeah, so as you can see now, if we, so till we did this, if we are running this, what is happening is Flask is giving you an assertion error, right? So Flask has an assertion inside that there, like for each route, right? So like this is a route and slash profile is a
Yeah.
route. For each route, it should be mapped to only one single function, and that function's name, basically the internally Python names each function with some name, right? So
Okay.
delta
Okay.
name. So that
Okay.
should be unique. But now, because for every auth required, it's returning the same name, right? Def inner. So it is having the same name. So it's not unique for both of these. So what
Okay.
Wraps does is it just creates a random name for each of them, or not random, basically based on the actual function that is passed. So then it will have a unique name for each of these. So this will basically fix the error of Flask, so that now it will not give us the error.
So wrap is provided by Flask.
No, Wraps is basically a part of Python itself. So
Okay.
it's taken from func_tools. Func_tools is basically
Okay.
function tools. So there are multiple
Okay.
things in this. This is part of the Python default library.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, this is something we will write once, and obviously no one remembers how to write this. You can just look it up once and then write it once. But then once we have written this, we can use this auth required now everywhere. So now instead of doing all this checks, I can now safely remove everything, and I can just do what I need to do for index here. Similarly, I can do just what I need to do for profile here, and I don't have to worry about the checking and all. So now, because I have this auth required here, this will basically do the same thing. So now you can see if I open the profile, it's working. But then if I open the same profile in incognito, it will automatically tell, please log in to continue, and redirect us to the login page. And if I log in now if I go to this page, it will work. So that is basically high order explanation of what decorators are. Obviously, if you are more interested, you can go into much depths of what decorators are, how it actually works inside Python. But that will not be required for actually implementing in the project. So just understand how to define it and how to use it. So similarly, how we are using it for the app route, we use it for the auth required also. All right. Any doubts in this one? So I know it's a bit of a complicated subject, so just let me know if anything is confusing. No, right? Okay. So even if it's confusing, don't worry too much about it. Just remember how to write this, or you can search up how to write this, and then you just define it once, and then you use it everywhere else. Also, as I said earlier, so just again repeating the same thing, don't put this auth required in things like register or login. So what happens is if you put it here in the login, let's say, and so what will happen is, so first of all, we have not defined it at the top. So let me move it to the top so that I can show you what happens. All right, so yeah, so what happens is basically now if a unregistered person tries to open this page, he will basically get this too many redirects, right? So as we saw earlier. So even the login page is telling him to log in before continuing. So that is something we should not do. So we'll remove the auth required from login, and we'll have it only for the like authenticated pages. All right. So that is the basics of decorators. So now let's continue making the profile page, right? So we were making the profile page. So right now it's just showing hello admin. So let me add some basic style. I won't style it too much. And we'll say, let's say hello, and then maybe I'll make it in a like muted. So this is a bootstrap class. I'll say the user's name. So I'll put an @ sign, and then I'll say user.username. So all right, and maybe I can make it also, it's not muted, it's text muted. All right, and then maybe we can add some other details also. But then one functionality we want to add to the profile page is basically being able to log out. So let's add the controller for that real quickly. So in the routes, we'll add a logout. And for the logout, we actually need the person to be authenticated. So for this one, we'll have the auth required here. So yeah, let's have the logout page, and we'll have the auth required. So you have to be logged in, first of all, if you want to log out. And then the logout is pretty simple. So what we do is we just remove this user ID from the session dictionary. That's all you have to do. And even if the person has a cookie, it'll not match with anything we have in our record. So we'll still say, okay, whatever cookie you have, it may be fake and all. So I don't believe you. You just have to log in again. So we just remove the user ID from the session, and then we redirect him to the login page. So now that we have the logout method, let me just add a link to it in the profile page. So here we can have a button so that the person can log out. So let's say we'll have a link, so an anchor tag, and we'll add some Bootstrap classes to make it look beautiful. And in that, the href will build dynamically using the URL for. So the URL for will say is for the function logout. And I think that's all. And then we have to write some text here, which we want to show in the button. And then, yeah, if you reload, you can see that there's a logout button. And once I do this, we'll come back to the login page. So now if I try to go to the profile page, it'll, and if I reload, so it'll tell me that please log in to continue. So now we are basically logged out. So now if I log in, let's say some other user, and then I go to the profile page, and so it'll show their username instead. So now along with the logout, let's also add a form here so that the user can change their username or change their password or change their name, right? So one part which we saw for the admin was that the admin default credentials will be created automatically, admin, but then that's not safe, right? So anyone can guess that the credentials is admin. So what the admin will do basically is, as soon as he creates the application, first he will log in and change his password. So let's see how we can implement the change password thing here. All right, so what we will do is we'll have a form to change password and username. So we'll first create a form, and the action will be to the same place itself, but then the method will be post. So not like this, my bad. So it should be form post, and then I think dot post should work. Yeah, so the class is post. Sorry, my bad. Post.form. Yeah, so the class is form and the method is post. And inside the form, we will first of all ask him to update the username. So first of all, let's have a form group. And inside that, let's have a label, which will be for the username. And we'll have an input of text, which is for the username. All right, so it'll look something like this, but then obviously it's not looking nice. So we'll just add the Bootstrap classes, right? So we'll add the classes form label, and here we'll add classes form control, and that will make it look a little bit better. And then similarly, we'll do it for the password and the name also. So we'll have a form group for the password, and then so one thing we want to check is that the password is correct, right? So we may ask them to repeat the password, but then we may not do that also. But then another thing which I want to do is ask them for their current password now. So only if they have the current password, they should be able to change their password. So let me call this new password, and let me have another here, which is asking for the current password. So here I'll have label for current password, and I'll ask, what is your current password? And yeah, let me add the classes also. And the input will basically be also type password, but then here the name will be C password instead. So this is just a way to confirm that the person actually remembers his current password. And then we can let him change the new password if he gives us the current password. And finally, we'll also let them change their name, because why not? So we'll ask them to enter their name. All right, so we'll have a label for the name, and we'll ask them to enter their name. And then we'll have an input of type text for the. All right. So that's everything I want to add here. So now we need a button for them to make the submission, right? So we'll have a submit button. So the submit button is, you can make it in two ways. One way is you can have a button of type submit, and inside you can say update or something. Or you can have an input of type submit, and then in the value, you can write what you want to write. So both of them are correct ways of doing this. And then we set the classes button primary to make it look good. All right, so this is the form now. And so we have now made the front end part, but then if I change also, nothing will happen. So what will happen is it will get method not allowed. So what should we do to fix this? What should we add to our code? Anyone? So when we are submitting the form, it's telling the method not allowed. So first of all, what does this mean? Method not allowed. And secondly, how do we fix it?
We make a post method in profile.
Yes, exactly. Right. So this means is the post method which we are using, because as you remember in the form you're using method is post, right? So it tells that the post is not allowed because we have not declared any mapping for it. So yeah, exactly. We go to the routes and we declare a function which handles that precisely. Yeah, thanks. So we'll do app.route, the same route, which is profile. So not this, the same route, but it will now be, so it is also auth required, but this will now have sorry, method of a post. And let's name it something like profile underscore post. All right. So what we will do here is we've already checked if the user is authenticated, so we don't need to check that, but we do need to, let me turn this off. So that, yeah, so but we do need to do some other checking also, right? So yeah, let me disable Copilot. All right. Yeah, so the first thing which we have to check is obviously the base case that the values are actually given, right? So we have to check if the username and the password is actually given to us. So we'll first get all the values from the form using the request.form. And the username is request.form.get username. And then we have the current password. So the password is request.form.get C password, and then the basically the same thing but for actual password. So remove the C, and finally the name is request.form.get name. So these are the 4 fields. So the name can be empty, but then we'll check if these 3 are present. So what we'll do is if not username or not C password or not password. So if any of them are empty and the user has not provided them, we'll give them a warning, right? So we'll send them back. We'll say, please fill out all the fields or all the required fields. All right, and let me see if the name is marked as required or not. So, okay, nothing is marked as required. Let me add that. So we'll mark this as required, this as required, and this as required, but then the name we will not mark it as required. All right, so we will do this flash and then we'll return redirect to the same place basically. So URL for, so we will return them to the profile if the fields are empty. All right, so that is the, I don't know why there's a space here, 1 second. All right, yeah, so we'll do this checking. Now, after this, we'll also have to check a few other things, right? So first of all, we'll see if the current password which they have given is actually correct. So we know already who the user is, so we can get the user from the user.query.get using the session. So let me turn it on again so that it's a little faster for us to get through the codes. So yeah, we'll use the session.userid to get the user, and then we'll basically see. So we'll use the if, let me see if it's imported here. Yeah, check password hash, right? So we'll see if not check password hash of the user's current password hash and the current password which he entered. If it's not correct, then we'll say, okay, how do you want to change it if you don't even know your current password? So we'll tell him incorrect password, and then we'll redirect to profile again. So we will check that, and then if that's true, so this is correct and everything is present, then we will update all the details to the new details. So is there any other thing which we need to check here? So let's say the fields are entered correctly, and then the current password is correct of the current password. So should we now blindly set the new password and the new name and the new username to anything the user wants, or do we have to check something else first? Any suggestions, anyone? There's some which may arise. Yeah, go ahead.
We need to check with the old, the existing password, right?
Yeah, that we have done, right? So we have checked if the
Yeah.
the current password which he entered here, it matches the
Okay,
one
yeah.
we have. Yeah. So let's say the current password he has given correctly, and new password he has set something, and he has changed the name to something else and changed the username to
We have
something
to
else.
get the new password, confirm new password, right?
Yeah, that we can do. So that but we have not added here, so that's fine. If we add it also, let's say new and confirm are matching, but here we have not added it. So should, if the password and everything is correct, do we let the person change their name and password and username to anything they want, or do we have to check something else? Some constraint which may be violated.
We should not change the username, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we are allowing them to change, but then we should check that the username is not clashing with someone else's username, right? So
Yeah.
we'll have to see if the username which they're trying to get is already taken by someone. Yeah, exactly. Right.
But
So, yeah,
if, say for example, I created a username as Prakash,
yeah,
and that is there in the system,
yeah.
but we should delete it if I'm going to create a new username with a different thing, right? Or
Yeah, we don't have to delete it. We'll simply like update the value, right? So instead of Prakash, it will change to something else. So if you want to change from Prakash to Prakash1, we'll just update that column of that row to change the username.
okay, I got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because we're using the user ID as the unique identifier, right? And we are not
Okay, yeah, I
using
got it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
exactly. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll check if they're actually changing the username. So we'll see if the current user, like the username they've entered here, is different from the users.username. Then we also have to, so we don't blindly do this, right? So the suggestion here is wrong. So what we will do is now we will see if, so we'll see, let's say, new username, and we'll get like user.query.get, and we'll see if that already exists. So we'll do user.query.filter by username is username, and we'll see if the new username already exists. So if new user, then we'll say that, okay, whatever you're trying to change your current username to, that already exists. And it is not allowed. So we'll still not change it, and we'll redirect him to the profile page. And the reason we need to do this checking here is that we only do this if the one which has entered here is different from his current username. So if we don't do this check, then it will always say, so let's say I don't want to change my username and I just want to change my password, then it will say, no, this username is taken, you cannot set to it. So obviously I won't cause the error if he is just setting it to his own username. But if he is changing his username and that username is already taken by someone else, then we will give this error. So finally, if the unique username is true, the current password is correct, and then we basically create the new passwords hash. So new password hash is the generate password hash of the password which he entered now, and then we will just update. So user.username is username, and user.password hash is password hash, and user.name is name. So we update the things and then we have to commit it. So we'll do db.session.commit. So because this is not a new entry to the database, we don't have to do db.session.add. We just, because we're just editing the values, we can directly do db.session.commit. And after this, we will maybe show like a message that, okay, everything is done, and then we will send them back to the profile page.
So here the user will be in the session context. Even we something like we don't have to do a begin, right? So,
No. As I said, we never have to do any session begin. That is something you do in SQL. So if you're using SQL Alchemy, the session thing is handled automatically.
okay, just you fetch that user. Since you
Yeah.
fetch that user, it is there in the session. Okay.
Yeah. Because we are doing this user.query.get. So we get the current user and it's stored in a variable. So we can just assume that it is stored here and we can do everything with it. So we don't have to worry about handling the session. So only thing which we do from the developer side is we tell SQL Alchemy, okay, I'm done with the changes I want. So this is end of a transaction, committed to the database.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's reload this page. And now let's say this is my username, this is my password. And let's say password I don't want to change, but the name, let's say I put my full name. So a profile updated successfully, and but then the name is not shown here, right? So it would be better if, let's say, the username, the password, and the name is shown the current value first, so that I can at least see it is being updated. Or even if I want to edit it, it's easier for me to edit. So one way to do that is basically what we can do is in the profile, right? So we are already sending the user. That's how we are getting the username to show here. So here in the input fields, what we can do is we can set a default value. So we can either set it as a placeholder or we can set it as the actual value also. So I'll just set it as the actual value. So let me maybe move it to a new line. All right. So what we will do is we'll set the value, and it will basically be user.username. So similarly, we'll do this for the, so we won't do it for the password because we obviously don't store the password, but we will do it for the name, right? So for the name, it will be value equals user.name. All right. So for the username and the name, it should show the current user's name. So if I reload now, you can see the username and the name is set of the current user. And as you can see, the name is changed. So now let me try to change my username to admin and give the password. And as you can see, it will tell username already exists. So it does not let me change my username to some username which already exists. But let's say I want to make a username which does not exist. In that case, it will work. So as you can see now, my username changed and even it's reflected here. So that is the basic profile page which we will be creating. So, and I'm not styling it much, but then obviously you are free to add your own styles to this. I've added basic bootstrap styling. And you can also, maybe you can use a profile picture if you want. So you don't have to like get into uploading pictures and all, but you can usually create some default pictures also. So default profile picture generator online, you can search, and there are some online things which will directly let you do it, right? So uh, let me see, I think there was one called Avatar. Yeah, so you can look up some links like these where they basically let you give one seed, and then maybe you can use the username or something as a seed and create a picture. So that's totally up to you how you want to do this. But then this was the basic part of the profile page. So now we have done the decorators part. So, and we have also done the profile page. So we are almost done for today. So one more thing we'll add now is the nav bar. So right now, as you can see, there are places we want to go, like the home page or the profile.
Sayan?
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I heard of like where will we store the image and like how will interact with the profile? If you could show
Yeah,
a simple.
sure. So sure. So yeah, for the simplest way is not storing an image, right? So I won't go into
Yeah.
storing an image right now. I'll show you how you can do it without storing an image. So give me 1 second. Let me remember what the utility was. So I don't remember exactly. Let me just check once. Yeah, dice beer. So the name is dice beer. So there are multiple like this. Okay, so this I just found by searching. So what you can do is we can basically use this link, which lets you send any seed. So let me show you how this works. So if I, one second. I copy this and I paste this. So basically, this is an API, right? So you don't have to do anything. Let's say I just give my name here. So it will create an auto-generated default image, right? So, and if I change the username, which is the seed basically, it will give a different image. So the easiest thing you can do is you can basically say, I'll take this link and I'll just add the user's username here. So let me show you how we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Like in the so you need to show that link just in the HTML alone.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to do anything in the backend at all.
Yeah.
So let's say here I create a new div, right? So I do a profile pic, and here we have a image. So in the image, I can just paste this link, and in the seed, I'll do user.username. So I think that's all. So we have to add some styling, obviously, because this may be too big or something. So the width and all we have to set. But now you can see, yeah, we basically get the image. So let me quickly set a low width. So width equals, let's say, 100 or something. All right, yeah. So you can see, you can obviously style it and move it to some places and add some borders and all. But then if the user simply changes their username and gives the correct password, it will automatically update, right? So that's one way you can do it. So it's a very simple way to do
Okay.
it. Instead of letting them upload an image and handling that, you can also set some default images as well. So that's just one of the ideas. You can also tinker around with other ideas. All right, so yeah, let's do a break for syncing. I think that's required, right? Because we covered decorators and profile pages. All right.
Yes, same. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just see what are the changes which we did. So we made some changes in the routes and we created the profile page. All right. So we added auth required decorator and profile page. All right. Okay, so I've pushed the changes. So if you go to the repo now, yeah, you'll get the latest commit and you can see all the changes which we have done and you can sync up basically to the state. So let's take a break till, I don't know, you guys tell? Not too long, but then, yeah.
Yeah, I vote for 110.
Yeah, sure. Let's break till 110 then. All right. Yeah, we can take 10 minutes also, or I think, yeah, 15 minutes is also fine. So let's just resume at 110. So let everyone catch up at their own pace. So let's not hurry anyone. So we'll resume at 110. All right. So hopefully all of you are back, right? So and hopefully you've synced up till what we have done. So let me share my screen, and do let me know if you are facing any issues in the parts which we did, right? So the decorators part. So we declared a decorator. We use that to authenticate, and then the profile part. So we created the front end of the profile as well as the back end of the profile. And we basically had a basic profile page where we can, uh, 1 second, let me open the profile page. Yeah, so we can set the, change the username, the password, and the name. And we also saw very briefly how to add some random images for the profile. All right, so any problems in this or any doubts with this? Otherwise, we'll then move on to the last part for today, which is the conditional rendering in the nav. All right, so hopefully all of you are back now. Yeah, so right now, as you can see, it's always showing the same two links, right? So login and register. So if I open the navbar.html, we can see we have just two items here, which is one is login and then one is register. So let me delete these stuff. So this is basically some extra stuff. Yeah, all right. So right now you can see we have two links, login and register always, and even if we are logged in, it is letting us come to these pages, which should not be true, right? So if I have logged in, I should not be able to go to this page. So, and I should not be able to like get this links. Instead, I want the profile link. So what we can do now basically is use conditional rendering. So just like we did if and for and everything in the other things, right? So like in the layout, we used if for conditionally rendering some messages. Similarly, in the nav also, we can use that. So usually what was the way for us to check if a user is logged in the backend, like in the routes? How did we do it? Anyone? Like what is the check that we do to see if a user is like if the current user is logged in?
Auth required.
Yeah, auth required is the decorator, exactly.
Backend.
But then how do we check it inside the auth required? Like what is the thing that we look for?
We look for the user ID in the session.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we see if in the session dictionary, the user ID key is existing. So what we'll do is we'll basically do the same thing in the navbar also. So here we will, so inside here we'll just create an if condition. So I'll just use the j.if else to quickly create that block. So what we will do is we'll see if the user ID is in session. So the same thing which we're doing there. And so if it is true, then we will show some links. And if it's not, then we show these links instead. So if, 1 second, yeah, if the it is not present, so if the user is not logged in, then we show him the login and the register links. But if the user is logged in, then we will instead show him the link for the profile. And the text should also be profile. So if we do this now, you can see I'm getting the profile link here. And if I log out, then I'm getting the login and the register links here. So why is this working? So for the others, we can understand that I am able to get the things, but then we're including the nav bar here, right? So how is the nav bar able to access the session? So this is because when we are including layout, so we have not mentioned anything here, but then there are two ways of including something. One is with context and another is without context. So if we don't mention anything, by default, Flask uses with context. So basically, this is same as not mentioning anything. And as you can see, it works. But then if we change it manually to without context, so now this tells that, okay, load this navbar.html, but don't let that person know whatever is going on outside with me. So don't let him know what is session and all. So if we do this, then you can see that even if we log in, so it's still showing login and register. It's not showing the profile. But now if I delete this, Yeah.
Sham, can you repeat it once? Because the session object you're talking about is a front-end session, right? Or I
yeah,
got confused with the session.
Yeah, basically the session which we are checking here, right? So if user ID in session. So for us to be able to check this, we need to have access to this, right? So this variable.
Yes.
So
Here it is clear, but
yeah,
the session you are referring to is Flask session.
yeah, exactly. Yes, Flash session.
Okay.
The same thing which we are doing in routes basically. So here we have the access to that because we are importing it, right? So from Flask import the session.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in the nav bar we also have access to it because while we are including it in the layout, we are including it with context. So
But
basically,
how does layout get the session?
so basically, session and a few default things that's already loaded in the Jinja. So so that because checking the session is something which we always do, right? So for most pages. So I'm not exactly sure about when or where it's loaded, but then yeah, in general, the main page which is rendered, it will have the
Okay.
access to
Session.
this
Okay.
session. Yeah. So
So
but
okay.
then if we make it without context, then it basically does not pass it on to the things we're including. But if we make it with context, then as you can see, if we refresh, it is able to show it correctly.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Yeah. So if we log out, we get login and register, and if we log in, we get profile. And then we'll also add other links here as in when we make them. So things like the cart and the orders page. So even though we have this link, let me add another link here to refer to the home so that it's clear that we also have that. And I think, yeah, that's all we have for today. So I can, so not home, actually, the name of the method is index, and but here we can call it home. Yeah, so now we have two links, and then if I click on home, we come to home, and then if I click on profile, we come to the profile. So that is pretty much it for today. So what we will be covering tomorrow is basically this user's homepage and then the admin's homepage for creating, reading, updating, and deleting the categories and the products. So the actual meat of the stuff, so the actual things which we need for the project, we're actually getting in from day 4. So till today, we basically set up our projects. We vetted our tool literally using some basic flasks, and then we also added the authentication and the basic nav bar and error stuff. So now that we are set up with all the things we need, we will then slowly pick up pace from tomorrow by creating the pages for CRUD and then the page for the user dashboard. So yeah, that's all I have for today. So I'll push this and then we'll open for discussions or doubts. All right. So let me just, yeah, we'll have changes in nav and layout. So let me add that. And yeah, this is conditional rendering in navbar. And I'll push that. All right, yeah. So I've pushed the changes, so you can sync up to this after today's session because we don't have anything else to cover today. So let me just see if I need to explain anything else in the extras. So yeah, we have covered methods and okay. So we have not covered this methods and models because we have not implemented it actually. So I'll do this later because I thought it'll get too complicated or too advanced for day 3 itself. So we'll slowly insert it later. Yeah, all this else we have covered, alerts and decorators and conditional rendering done. All right, so yeah, now we'll open up for doubts and discussions basically. So yeah, I'll stop the recording and then, so basically the session for today is over, but then we'll take doubts. So I guess lots of you have doubts. So 2 people yesterday asked me for doubts sessions today. So yeah, we'll open up the floor for that.